Hey YouTube, Gabe here with another Nectar deck profile with all of my Ahsha stuff from the Nation Booster. So let's get started, shall we? Starters, Peach Orchard Maiden Elmi. We're not running the new Ozu because it's bad. I don't remember what it does, and there's a reason for that. Elmi is just a free color card that's grade 2 or greater and bounce at the end of the turn, which is pretty great. I've been thinking of taking it out for Broccolini Musketeer Kiata because it's the grade 3 Surger and it helps like increase your chances of riding Ahsha since you're still only running one Ahsha. But, you know, Elmi's good. We'll see where playtesting goes, but I still like running her at 1. We're only running her at 1 because cloning isn't really a thing, so you really only need 1, which is pretty fun, not gonna lie. So, next we're running 4 copies of Lizbeth still, because Lizbeth isn't restricted in the TCG. I don't need to go, it's Lizbeth, you've seen enough of these deck profiles for me to need to talk about it. We have 4 of the heal, Antheria Musketeer Nicola, so when you G-Guard, you can bind 2 heals to Soul Charge or Counter Charge. Rather, it's better than the other one, because the other skill heal has a horrible skill, and this is a good skill, and getting resources is always nice. Still running 4 copies of Milas, because it's a G deck, crit with skill, getting soul, power, and a draw. So, pretty obvious. Next, 4 copies of the best card in Nectar Marigold Musketeer Rochelle. GB1, it becomes a trigger unit in drop and on rear and guard circle. So, it becomes a normal unit, I'm sorry. That's great because a bunch of things put normal units into the deck, and this way you can put normal units by putting triggers back, which is fucking amazing. I love her so fucking much. I went with triggers first. Whoops. Grade 3 is Ranunculus of Phantasmic Blue Ahsha. She's a great card. I just wish that she had a fucking rearguard skill so I could actually run 8 Ahshas, but Bushi can't let me be that happy. It's fine. At the beginning of your ride phase, you pick a circle other than Van, so locked cards count, and a card from drop, and you can put 1 from each to the bottom of the deck. If you put a total of 2, you get to draw a card. It says card, so you can put triggers back, which is great. I like to G-Guard with Rain Breath, call a trigger, and then put the heal that I G-Guarded with and that trigger back to the deck, which is fun. And when you stride, you can counterblast 1, search your deck for a normal unit with Bloom, call it to rear, and if you have 2 or more of that card, you Soul Charge on flip. This is the main reason why I'm running 1 Elmi, because you don't really clone anymore, because the deck is focused on Bloom as a mechanic, rather than, doubling up units. So, that's why I run 1 Elmi. She's good. She's the best Ahsha we have so far, but I just wish she had a rearguard skill. Coming back is Cornflower Maiden Inez. I love her a lot. I'm glad she's back. Bloom, at the end of the turn, you can put her to the bottom of the deck, check top 5 for a card with Bloom, add it to your hand and shuffle, and then that dinky on-ride counterblast, soul blast, check top 5 for a card with Bloom and add it to hand. Also what's annoying is Blue Ahsha doesn't have Bloom herself, which is for no reason, but whatever. Inez is good. She facilitates combos now, and because it's focused on Bloom as a mechanic, you can call her with Blue Ahsha and then Elmi, the other one, to get Bloom skill. So she's good. She's back and I love her. She also makes the Link Joker matchup less awful because less cards to lock. 4 copies of Charles, who actually became good with this most recent wave of support. If you have a Ranunculus Vanguard, you can check top 7, on attack, call a card that's already on the field from the top 7, so clone, and just call it, so it's a free +1. And Bloom GB1, choose a rear guard and it gets 4k and boost. She's good because if you have her and you call another and you give it 4k and boost, it becomes a 26k column, which is what's important with this deck to hit that 26 threshold with the new G unit, and she does that, which is great. And also she gives you +1 because she doesn't have to call a card with Bloom. So if you have a Milus, you can just use her, call a Milus, and then just get draws. 4 of the new collective Blooming Maiden Kara, retrain of the 10k vanilla. Love this card to death. It's like the other vanilla retrain. So if you have a Renankless Vanguard, it gets permanent 10k and resist. And Bloom, once per turn, she gets 10k and boost. So she becomes a thick girl, and she has resist, so I love her. Next, 4 copies of Promotion Maiden Lipset, which is Bloom once per turn. All cards in the same row as this unit get 4k, and if you have a card in the G zone, it gets boost. So, that makes spicy for some Ahsha Gize plays, but I'm kind of sad that it's once per turn, but it's fine because it gives like the whole row 4k. So again, if you have her and you call the other and you have the face-up G zone, it becomes a 26k column, so it hits that threshold, which is great. She's good because she also powers up other cards, so she's a good card. 4 copies of Seeding Maiden Tierney, who PG, but she can only guard a Ranunculus, so you really can't PG rear guards unless you have a Ranunculus on rear guard. And it has this fun Bloom ability where when you guard with 1, you can bind herself with another from drop. So you need 1 in drop and call the second to guard circle. And if you pay the bind cost, you can add a card with Bloom from drop. So it doesn't specify not Tierney. So if you have 2 in drop zone, you call it to guard circle, Bloom 1, bind itself, add the other to your hand. So that makes for some fun shenanigans. But she also has Bloom, so she's searchable with Inez to increase your odds of doing those shenanigans. Next, 4 copies of Padmini. You want to ride Blue Ahsha. You want to stride. 4 copies of Prosperity Maiden Diane, who is, again, the retrain of the vanilla, plus a K, and resist if you have a Ranunculus Vanguard. And Bloom once per turn, 10k, GB1. And at the end of the turn, if you bloom, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, you can bounce the one that bloomed to hand. So mass calling, and it gives you hand resources, which is nice, and also helps facilitating blooming in the next turn. She goes to hand, so she's good. She has resist, so she's good. Next, we have 2 copies of Repeated Cultivation Maiden Leslie. Bloom, Soul Charge. That's not why you run her. You run her for the other ability, which is Soul Blast 2, retire herself, GB1. After she boosts a unit with Bloom, you can pay the cost, and you can call a card from your deck with the same name as the boosted card. So, it's like the Bloom version of Magia's Betty. And because there's no restriction, you can have her boost Inez, and then call Inez and Bloom and get multi-attacks and just put cards into your hand with Inez's ability, so she's great. But because she's kind of cost-heavy, you really only run 2. Also, the other great ones are kind of more important. G-Zone, Seabreeze, it's a G-Deck. 3 copies of the new 4 Seasons Flower Princess Velhamina, which is beautiful. She's on attack, counterblast 1, flip something face up. Search your deck for up to 2 grade 2 or less cards with the same name that have Bloom and call them into separate rows. So you can just make a column. I'm pissed off that she has to call grade 2 or less, because if you could call grade 3s, apparently calling 2 Inez's would be broken or something. I don't know. It's not like they give themselves boost, but whatever. Multi-attacking, which is great. So with Leslie, you can make like 5 attacks, which is fucking lit, and stand triggers make more. Also, she has GB4. All rear guards in the front row get 5k and a crit. That part's great with Leslie, because if you're on Inez is 16k with the crit if you're on GB4. So you go 23k with the crit, Leslie, call Inez, 16 with the crit, then attack with Velhamina. She's great. You only need 3 because games will never go past 3 Velhaminas given the speed of the game. And if you're at GB4, 5k and a crit, they're not going to take for multiple turns. 2 copies of Lietha. This is how you deal with getting your field completely shat on if you don't have your resist units. Yeah, it lets you basically shit out a field if you have soul. I'm considering taking her out, honestly, but I don't know what to put in because Velhamina is like basically the go-to 24/7. But I'm still running her just for field safety. 2 copies of Verano because this is your stride if your opponent leaves you with no counterblasts. And it's an okay card. You can use it with Inez to get resources also, but you use it because you kind of it's how you deal with no counterblasts. A copy of Verano because Verano can still make decent resource shenanigans. It lets you put normal units back in deck, and because we have that one trigger that's a normal unit, you can put 4 triggers back in, which is so good. GB8 because she's still strong, and you kind of have the room now because Velhamina took out the Dream Spinning slash Glorious Bloom Ahsha, so you just got a lot more room, so there's still room to run her. I'm not running Primavera anymore just because the Counterblast 3 is really hefty, but I miss Primavera. She's always been good to me. We're running one Zoa. Again, we have the room now. Might as well put it in. It's 1 card. We still have room. We have Zoa, Seabreeze, and we still have room for 5 G units, so like what's the harm? Also, I can show off my privilege by flipping her with Velhamina just to be privileged. Still running a copy of Verna because my boy Axel gave it to me, so it's my friendship card, and it's decent. Like, it's not bad by any means, but I probably wouldn't be running it if it wasn't an SP that came from a friend. So I love you, Axel. I'm gonna see you in a week at the Toronto Regionals. Catch your boy at the Toronto Team League. Copy of Rain Breath. I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's Rain Breath in Bloom. Like, yeah. Running a copy of Costarina because it's similar to Rain Breath, but the main reason why is because Velhamina is GB4, so it helps get you there faster. Like, if your opponent strides first and you open up and you have 2 heal triggers in your hand, you can G-Guard with 1, then go Costarina and get Velhamina's GB4 off without needing to attack, so you can start the crits early. But also, she's a decent card and gets you to GB8 faster. Lastly, the 2 of the new Mod Protector Musketeer on a row. You got 4 or more. You get Soul Blast 1, give it 5k, and if you have 4 or more or 1 or less rear guards, it gets an additional 15. So it's a 35k shield, which is great. It's good. You use soul in this deck, but there's like plenty of ways to get the soul back, so it's not that bad. Yeah, that about wraps it up for the Blue Ahsha deck profile. Games coming soon. This is probably my favorite Neo Nectar has ever been since since like G started, just because like it works without clones the best, so it loses to game mechanics a lot less. There's still like a lot of things that Bushi could have done to make it even better without making it even remotely broken, like making it so that Velhamina can call grade 3s, or at least call grade 3s, stuff like that. But, you know, it is what it is. Give Ahsha rear guard ability, but, you know, it's fine. G's over, so this is what we're basically going to be left off with for the most part. Yeah, this is being recorded before the live stream. The live stream comes up today at the time of recording, so who knows, maybe Tokuha will be the protagonist and Ahsha will get ZTV-like skills. Who's to say? Anyways, I've been rambling on long enough. The deck is here. Game's happening. See you around, my dudes.